Hey guys, I want to make a video today and I want to gear it towards a little bit different audience than I would normally be gearing my videos towards. And that is to people out there in the middle of the issue between pro-gun and anti-gun. A vast majority of you out there, maybe you own a gun, maybe you don't own a gun. Maybe you even lean a little bit more towards the anti-gun side of things. That's who I want to speak to. You see, I've been noticing a lot lately that with all this talk of assault weapons bans, mag capacity bans, and evil black rifles, military style rifles, pro-gun, anti-gun, that there's been a lot of fear pushed by the media, by politicians, and by the anti-gun crowd. And it's being pushed on the vast majority of people in the middle of this issue. Now, I want to understand, and I want you to understand, why this fear is being pushed and what this fear is. Well, first off, the fear they're pushing on everybody is that somehow law-abiding citizens like you, like your friends, your family, your neighbors, cannot be trusted to own firearms, especially certain types of firearms. That somehow, if you and your friends and family own these firearms, that it will lead to nothing but death and violence and blood running through the streets. This is the fear they're pushing on to the American people, especially those out there in the middle who are neither pro-gun nor anti-gun, the people most susceptible to listen to their argument. So why are they pushing this fear, and is it even a valid fear at all? Well, first, the reason they're pushing it is obvious. They are anti-gun. The government in general, especially the government we see ourselves with right now, primarily leans towards the anti-gun side of things when it comes to citizens owning guns. So is it a valid argument? Well, we can point to a lot of different things and a lot of different statistics. We can point to the fact that we've had an assault weapons ban in the past from 1994 to 2004. It was allowed to expire because even Bill Clinton's own advisors, the very people who helped to put this assault weapons ban in place, said it did nothing to affect crime. So they allowed it to expire. And in fact, if you look at the last 20 years, our crime rate has dropped 50%. A large portion of that 50% drop happened after 2005 when the assault weapons ban was lifted and regular, everyday, law-abiding citizens were allowed to own more types of firearms for their own personal defense. We saw a big drop in crime, especially gun crime and violent crime. You also look at the FBI statistics that show that most of the crime, the violent gun crime and murders in this country happen in places that are high population, urban and suburban areas with high poverty rates. Places like Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, New York, and Southern California, which just so happen to also be the places where there's the highest gun control. So all evidence points to the contrary of what the media and the politicians are trying to push on you. It points to the fact that not only does more guns not equal more crime, it actually equals less crime. All statistics, all straight from the government. In fact, there's more statistics out there that show that just last year, about 250,000 people defended themselves against a violent crime with a firearm. Now, violent crime can be anything from attempted murder, assault, rape, anything like that. Now, you compare that to the murders that happened in this country. 11,000 to 12,000 people murdered last year in this country. And that's a horrible, horrible thing. But when you put it up against the fact that 250,000 people, conservatively, defended their lives against a violent crime with a firearm, well, it really comes down to it being a numbers game. You cannot ignore the fact that that many people were able to defend themselves against a violent crime when such a much smaller number was actually hurt by the same tool or device that allowed these other people to defend themselves. Yes, it's a tragedy when anybody dies. But people in the media would have you believe that a firearm never gets used for good, only for evil, and that somehow you shouldn't have the choice as to whether or not you can own something. Now, maybe you don't want to own a firearm. Maybe you'll never want to own a firearm, but do you really want that choice taken away from you altogether? Do you want the government to come in and say you can't have something? Because yes, I know you're saying, well, it's just certain types of firearms, just military-style assault weapons. But make no mistake, the people who have drafted these laws, people like Dianne Feinstein, Governor Cuomo, Mayor Bloomberg, they have come out and said many times that they don't want citizens having firearms, period. They would love to take away everything from us. They simply go for these military-style assault weapons because it's a low-hanging fruit. It's the easiest to go after. That's why they do it. But they would love to take your choice away to own any firearm. They would love to take your right to own any firearm away from you. Do you really want that right taken away from you? When you really sit down and look at the statistics, when you look at how many people's lives are saved by firearms, when you look at the fact that more firearms do not in fact equal more crime but equal less crime, do you really want the government coming in and saying that you can or cannot own something? What should you fear more? This notion they're pushing that somehow you owning a firearm will only lead to death and violence? Or should you fear the fact that they're trying to take something away from you in the first place?